the silent mode he forgot to turn on, the night his phone lit up face down. At 9:19 p.m., the phone lit up face down and taught me about gravity. It was lying on the counter between the cutting board and the bottle of olive oil, the glass winking once against the granite like a small star drowning. We have a rule about phones at dinner: face down, don't flinch. We're both good at pretending grace. But this light had a pulse, the kind of steady tap machines use when they're confident they can outweight your self-control. I held the knife in the air over the tomatoes and breathed through my teeth like a person trying to practice adulthood. He'd left it 8 in the jacket that flatters him even when mirrors get evangelical. Wrap toast, he'd said, 2 words that make celebration sound like minutes on a calendar. Then notes with Theo. Don't wait. Theo does sound. He carries microphones like small animals that can bite and listens the way only guilty men and real artists know how. My partner, Miles, kissed me at the door as if affection were something you could memorize and test on later. In the oven, a cinnamon thing was trying to make the apartment smell like an apology. The windows reflected back our plants, our chairs, our versions of stability. I sliced the tomatoes too thin on purpose. The knife put a clean edge on anxiety and promised to keep it neat. The phone vibrated again. Face down, the glow reached around the edges like water under a door. I told myself I would only check to see if it was the delivery app with the wine, or the group chat organizing the ridiculous weekend hike we would cancel at the last minute. The top of the screen showed the shape of a message even locked. Room 312, key at front desk, ask for Theo. The preview cut off where decency begins. The last sensible thing in me said, put the phone back, step away. Forgiveness is not a cliff you jump off before you know what you're forgiving. Then the rest of me, the part with keys and shoes, won the vote. The Hotel Aurora is a middling tower that learned how to be expensive by watching smaller buildings suffer. Brass behaves on the doors. The lobby is a sermon in lemon and debt. At the desk, a woman with perfect posture and a name tag that promised discretion smiled the way professionals do when they understand the exact radius of their responsibility. Key for 312, I said, as if numbers had ever made me brave. She checked a list and slid a card across the counter, eyes kind but not inquisitive. The elevator offered me a mirror and spelled my name backward. I gave it my best face anyway. On 3, the carpet hushed my shoes and the sconce lighting forced the hallway to pretend it had a secret. Room 312 had the kind of door that had forgiven too many people. I listened, habit from a childhood where doors could be teachers or soldiers, and heard the quiet evidence of a television trying to be considerate. I knocked once, a knock you could deny hearing if you needed to. The lock clicked. Theo opened the door. He was barefoot, shirt off, towel hooked over one shoulder like a story he wasn't finished telling. He looked exactly like his reputation, soft-bodied competence, the kind of eyes that make bad ideas feel safe. Behind him, Miles stood in the kitchenette with a bottle of something filtered and expensive, his jacket peeled off and his shirt unbuttoned one notch beyond daylight. There's a half-second at the start of surprise when the truth shows up without its coat. I watched that half-second arrive on Miles's face, watched him try to return it and find no counter. "Evan," he said, my name with the softness of a receipt. "I would have texted," I said, because I use humor to leash panic, "but your phone did it for me." Theo glanced at the nightstand where a small mountain of cables had been attempting discretion. He didn't apologize. He did the smarter thing. He stepped back, let the door swing wider and turned the television off. "You two," he said, "should have the room." It wasn't dramatic, it was logistics. He took his towel and a pair of shoes and ghosted past me with a nod that refused to be a challenge. Miles put the bottle down with the care of someone trying not to wake a sleeping animal. The room didn't smell like sex. It smelled like hotel air and expensive water, and a plan that hadn't had the time to become a crime. "I lied when I left," he said. He doesn't use adjectives when he wants to be correct. Rap happened. People tried their best grammar on goodbye. I told myself I wanted 30 minutes where being interesting didn't have to pass inspection. Are you sleeping with him? The question is a cliff. There isn't a scenic route. You count to one, you earn your mouth. Not yet, he said, clean, immediate. Then lower, the honesty that knows exactly which muscle wants to bruise. I brought my mouth. The television screen went dark and found our reflections thinner than truth. I crossed the room because distance has a half-life after 9, and some inches decay faster than patience. I lifted 2 fingers to the inside of his wrist where men keep their apologies and felt his pulse write my name there without permission. He closed his eyes like doors that were built with hands in mind. "You like wanting that proves something kindness can't," I said. "I didn't make it cruel. Cruelty is lazy precision. You treat intimacy like a sport and honesty like off-season training." "You like to coach," he said, mouth almost smiling, as if remembering a better room. "Which is unfair and also why we're not two strangers politely losing each other." "What do you want?" I asked. Now not the apology you drafted for daylight. He stepped into the inch that was about to turn into a lie if we let it. Heat crossed cotton like a fact you don't need to argue with. He spoke close enough that punctuation found my lower lip. "I want to go home," he said. "I want you to want me where our towels remember us and desire isn't charged by the hour." Behind me, the hallway door latched. Theo, to his credit, had faded with professional competence. The nearest lamp breathed at a lower setting, as if the room understood that volume is a moral choice. I kissed him. Not hunger first, relief. Relief is the kind of appetite you can escort past strangers without forcing anyone to pick a side. He leaned into me like debt that finally liked its math. Under my palm, at the small of his back, where his body keeps its best arguments, heat had already made itself a citizen. He made the low sound he never manages on cue, the sound that convinces me our kitchen is holy. I stopped before the room could pretend to be a witness. He rested his forehead against mine because punctuation beats grammar when the air is thin. The bottle on the counter caught its own reflection and pretended to be innocent. We left without touching the bed. I left the key on the table with the dignity of a man who knows symbolism is a habit, not a miracle. In the elevator, the mirror wrote our names backward and didn't ask us to translate. Outside, the city refused to narrate us. I respected it for that. At home, the cinnamon had kept faith more fiercely than people do. We ate it at the counter with our fingers because forks would have lied. He leaned into the drawer that sticks, the posture he uses when he wants to be moved and wants me to be accurate about it. I slid my palm under his shirt and found heat like an address that still has both our names on its mailbox. He tipped toward me with the weight gratitude gives a body when it finally stops negotiating. We were careful in bed, not the kind of careful that kills heat, the kind that knows where to fold it, how to stay human while you brush against the edge. He knows where to set his hand on my ribs so the rest of me turns without issuing a press release. I know where his shoulder hides when it has run out of brave, and how to coax it into telling the truth with weight and breath, and a mouth that has stopped trying to rescue him and still wants him. I won't draw you a map. I'll tell you the room remembered to breathe, and morning forgave us because it had other work. We slept like people who weren't finished. Light shouldered into the blinds with the confidence of a suggestion. He made coffee the way he does when he wants me to listen. I opened the window and let cold air preach the gospel of wakefulness. The phone sat between us on the table like a witness that didn't understand jurisdiction. He started with small truths because small truths keep larger ones upright. The notes had run long. The hotel felt like an easier kind of decision. Theo's attention had the grammar he wanted to try on. Then he ran out of script and said the part I could keep. He said he is tired of being interesting for a living, tired of being curated, captioned, archived. He said he wanted to be wanted like teenagers are: stupid, earnest, badly lit, forgiven in advance. He said he imagined my mouth more than once in that stupid little room and hated the math. He said he was sorry like a man who knows sorry is a tool, not an eraser. I didn't forgive him at the table. Forgiveness is a daylight animal and morning's charge. I told him to put on the coat that doesn't belong to hotels and walk with me to the river, where water lies about Paris, and we let it. We sat on the bench we claim when we need to be correct. Pigeons performed competence. A runner's breath taught our bodies a cadence we could afford. He hooked his thumb into my pocket like humility. I let him. 2 afternoons later, I saw Theo in a lobby that smelled like ambition and lemon, the city's preferred cologne when it's trying to look clean. He gave me the nod men give when they've chosen to be furniture on purpose. He didn't apologize and I didn't deputize. We shared an elevator mirror that spelled our names backward and required no translation. It isn't that we agreed. It's that we learned how to read ourselves both ways. After that, the phone learned better manners around us. Silent mode did its job. But I don't trust settings, not really. I trust the square of light at 4 when it climbs our wall like an idea that finally put on shoes. I trust the heat under his shirt at the small of his back when my hand remembers its job. I trust that if a room ever dares again to put a number and a name on our evening, I will do what I did that night. Find air, choose kissing over theater, walk him home with my palm resting on the part of him that knows the address, and keep teaching our door, gentle, stubborn, local, to open from the inside. It didn't end there because lives don't have the decency to follow acts. Tuesday, a week after the Aurora, my phone dinged with an appointment reminder I didn't set. Soundstage B, Adder 3:00 p.m. Bring coffee. The shared calendar we'd made back when tenderness was a project had invited me without thinking. At 2:40, I walked past the warehouse that makes sound feel like religion, and stared through a pane of glass at a room where he stood in front of a mic, telling a version of truth into a pop filter. Theo was in the booth, headphones on, making competence look easy. He saw me, startled once, then set his mouth into something like respect. When the take ended, he lifted a finger, not wait, but acknowledge, and came out. He extended a coffee as if it were a passport. "For you," he said. "From me. No tax." I took it. We stood by a wall of foam triangles that had learned patience as a profession. "I'm not a villain," he said. "Neither is he. You aren't either. Sometimes a room tries to make theater out of people, and the only good thing anyone can do is refuse to perform." "You kissed him?" I asked. It came out quieter than pride allows. "I didn't," he said. "He kissed me once. I stopped it. It's not because I'm better than anyone. It's because I like the version of him that goes home." We let the foam drink our silence. He tapped the rim of his cup and looked at me like a carpenter measuring a door. "You don't need my blessing," he said. "You also don't need my confession. But if it helps, no, it didn't happen. Not because I didn't want it, because I did and liked him enough to prefer his life over my appetite." Back home, Miles stood at the window, backlit and unrepeatable. I told him what Theo had said. He closed his eyes and nodded as if someone somewhere had finally managed to tune the instrument to the right key. I won't make you my parole officer, he said. I will make you my witness. You can hold me to it, and I'll hold me to it, and we'll see if we both like who I am when I'm not interesting to anyone else. We are not a miracle. We are a schedule, a set of habits, an agreement we revise in pen and then in pencil and then in pen again. Sometimes we fight about small things because big things have decided to behave for the weak. Sometimes I wake at 3:17 and listen for a phone that is not ringing. Sometimes he wakes before me and puts coffee beside the bed with a note so simple it makes me reevaluate nouns. Here. And on certain nights when the city forgets to be clever, his mouth finds mine with the urgency that belongs to thunderstorms and the patience that belongs to laundry. We stay just on the lawful side of the line, because good heat does not need choreography to be true. When it's done with us, when we are done with it, he slides his hand to the heat at the small of my back and rests there like a page that always knew how to end. If another light ever crawls around the edge of a phone on a counter at 9:19 p.m., if some room number tries again to volunteer a story for us, I believe I know what happens next. I'll look at him, and he'll look at me, and we'll decide, quietly, domestically, with the fatigue of people who have lived and the optimism of people still willing, to choose our kitchen over the theater. We'll choose our wall of afternoon light over the glitter of someone else's linens. We'll choose this stubborn, tender, local door, and we'll keep teaching it to open from the inside,